It's 7 days to the federal election. Here's your update. BC has switched over to being blue. Liberals way down below that 190 level we were talking about, sitting at 184 today. Conservatives up to 126 projected seats. Bloc up to 23. NDP up to 9. Green still at 1. The odds of the Liberal majority coming all the way down to 68%. Liberal plurality at 22%. Conservative minority still at 9%. Very, very low. Like we talked about, these poll numbers are starting to converge, starting to more accurately represent the most recent polling data, which shows these two leaders basically neck and neck for popularity. As we've talked about before, that means a Liberal minority government. Even if the Conservatives can pull ahead a tiny little bit with the popular vote, we're still going to have a Liberal minority. So I think the election is 1 week away, and if I had to guess what happens, I mean, the Liberals will hold government. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I was never convinced they would hold a majority. Never completely convinced. I don't know, but it's looking less likely based on the most recent polling, the actual polls, the most recent individual polls. They are constantly flipping every day. Mainstreet research is flipping almost every day between who's more popular. If you take that into account, you're probably going to end up with a Liberal minority. You're probably going to end up with these numbers being very close together. You're going to have another election where the popular vote is only, is barely any difference between the popular vote, but maybe the Conservatives will actually win it, and then they'll just lose anyway. The Liberals will have a minority government. Because you can see they're pretty close together, not a lot of the five point difference here. And then down here we've got a almost 60 seat difference between the two parties. You can see here with the projected ranges only in the last couple days, as the projected ranges actually allowed at all for a Conservative minority. So technically, given these numbers, we could absolutely see a Conservative minority. You would just have to see a significant amount of the vote share go to the Conservatives. Like, they have to win way more votes than the Liberals in order to win a minority. Or the Liberals have to have more progressive vote share dilute back into the smaller parties, which is happening. You take a look here, we can see some of that progressive vote share is leaving the Liberals. It's going back into NDP, it's going back into Bloc. There are also people, they have to be coming from the Liberal swing voters, joining back with the Conservatives. This race is getting much tighter, and like we said, we have individual polling data, which we will jump into in a minute here, that corroborates this whole very tight race idea. Okay, jumping on to CBC, they are still projecting quite a massive difference between the two parties. So they have the Liberals at 10 more projected seats than 338 does. Conservatives only at 3 less. They're not giving as many progressive seats to the small parties. They're keeping them with the Liberals on these polls. Conservatives only 3. That's not a big difference. Big differences in the projected numbers now. But this hasn't been updated yet for today. This is still from yesterday, so we'll see how that changes. CBC is still projecting an 83% Liberal majority. Polymarket is still very convinced that Carney will become the next Prime Minister. Or Polymarket doesn't care about a majority. Well, this particular bet that we like to check, they don't care who, they don't care about the government, majority, minority. It's just about who's going to win. It's just about who's going to hold government. And we're not seeing any change. I mean, all of our other polling data, the numbers are converging. Things are getting close. But it looks like people with money, people who are putting their money where their mouths are, they still believe Mark Carney will be the Prime Minister. Okay, we are back into the same Mainstreet research rolling polls that we've been checking out over the last few updates. It hasn't flipped. It is still in favor of Polyev. However, we are very, very close. We'll check it. We'll try to check her every day until the election, and you should expect to see this keep flipping. That's my guess. If these polls start to favor the Conservatives consistently, then you should expect that to be represented in the election. Leading voters undecided total, same thing. 1% more in favor of Polyev than Carney. Moving down to decided and leading voters, even between the two main parties. Okay, now unfavorables and favorables of Mark Carney. Mark Carney still barely maintaining over 50% favorability to some degree. just barely. His unfavorables, his strongly unfavorables are stronger than his strongly favorables, and they weren't before. We can assume that some of his don't know decided they don't like him, because this was at 8% a couple days ago. Polyev is now more liked than disliked, if by barely, but this is very new. So now we've seen a complete flip in opinions. Kearney is now the one people like less. Polyev is now the one people like more. Okay, we've got the rolling poll from Nanos to look at as well. Question: for those parties you would consider voting for federally, could you please rank your top 2 current local preferences? Okay. April 20th, yeah, so 43.7% of people preferring liberals, 36.3% of people preferring conservatives. The current federal political party leaders, could you please rank your top 2 current preferences for Prime Minister? Okay, I like this because it gives people multiple choices. This system, yeah, this poll showing an even larger discrepancy for people preferring Kearney over Polyev. And then the other polls are showing us slightly in favor of Polyev over Kearney. So these things are quite interesting. You have to consider all of them to a degree, but I mean, we're seeing the polls converge. So I don't know, man. I think it's closer. I think it might be closer than this is letting on. Here's the breakdown for that question. Okay, that's it. Taking a look at how the seats have been going over the last few days. The Liberals, like we talked about, were jumping around the 190 to 200 level. But they drop below it right here. Nope, right here on the 18th, and they have not risen above it yet. They have not been able to rise above it yet. We talk about trends. We want to see, is it really going down over time? Are we sure? How can we be confident? Well, let's go all the way back to here. Take a look. The Liberals had 198 seats. It's the highest they were at. That was on the 3rd. And we move forward throughout the month, and they pretty much only go down. They bounce around a little bit, but their lows are always lower and their highs are always lower. 198, and then all the way down to 191 on the 9th. And we only get back up to 196. We never get higher than 196 again. 196, 196, 193, 190. We jump back up a little bit to 193. That's our new highest high. You saw the 190 is our new lowest low from 191. Okay, so those are trends that are repeating over time. Now we get to 193, sorry. 193 on the 16th, and it's just down. It's been down every day. So even if we rise back up a little bit, I think you can almost certainly expect the height to never get back up to here. I think you can almost certainly expect this to be a lower high if they're able to get a few more seats back. Is the majority locked in? It's hard to say. It's hard to say. They lose 12 more seats and then they lose that majority. I guess 13. They lose 13 more seats and they lose that majority. Will they lose them? I don't know. But I know that a lot of people do not want them to win a majority government. So, that's just anecdotally, of course. Only time's gonna tell. But I still think they're gonna hold government. It might be a minority, it might not. But I still think the Liberals are gonna hold government. I don't really think there's any way... I don't think there's any way they lose enough vote share, because like we said, people have to flock to the smaller parties, and then they'll have to, swing voters are gonna have to go back to conservative, because you just have to take so many votes away from the Liberals in order for the conservatives to be able to win against them. And those votes don't have to go to conservatives, but they just have to not go to the Liberals. Okay, we've got the Liaison strategies poll that's been rolling for the last couple of days. Voting intent national decided in leading only. If a federal election were held today, which party would you vote for? And undecided only, which party are you leaning towards? 43% leaning or voting liberal and 37% conservative. As we all know, the amount of seats anybody gets is going to depend entirely on where those votes are coming from. You can't look at, with our system, you cannot look at something like this and determine at all what's going to happen. with this, yeah, liberals are gonna win. If this was flipped, the liberals might still win. The system's busted. You know, you cannot... Just because most people want one party to win does not mean it's going to. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.